Welcome to the Worship Keys YouTube channel. My name is Carson Bruce. So glad you're here. We talk all things music theory, gear, industry, and ministry for your worship keys playing. If this episode is beneficial for you or you have any questions as you continue to watch, feel free to comment below, and I'd love to hear any feedback that you have along the way. So let's get into today's episode. Guys, welcome back to the Worship Keys podcast. We're in Atlanta, Georgia right now with Zain Stephen for a second time. He's back for a second episode. Zane, tell us what you're going to be talking about today, man.
All right, so today we're going to be doing a deep dive into my Ableton setup. Essentially, I'm going to let you into my brain, like to see how I think, how I set up my sounds to be able to switch different sounds, have like 20, 30, 40, 50 sounds open in Ableton at once that I can all switch in between really quickly and use little CPU and have it flow right in the moment, just like that.
It's awesome, man. And there's so many different ways to run Ableton. And so here's just one of the many ways that you can really get a cheat sheet for how to use Ableton. There's still a lot of work, and you still got to know a lot of things within Ableton, but this episode is going to really inspire you to go out there and learn Ableton and really use it to its fullest potential. Basically, we have this broken down into three different sections. Take us through the three different things that you're going to be showing us, Zane.
Yeah, so the first section is essentially, essentially me just showing my template that I have to be able to switch between different sounds. The second section is going to be a playthrough of a kind of really planned out, really organized worship set that I would be doing. And the third one, I'm going to pull up essentially just my Sunday session and kind of show you a different way to, instead of having it extremely planned out, to have it more free flow, accessible, which requires a little bit more work, but it just works for if I'm doing like, in the moment grabbing at sounds versus, when things are planned out, you have a little bit less flexibility, but it's a little bit more streamlined. So kind of pros and cons. You can kind of feel out whichever one work for your setup.
Super cool. And just a quick gear rundown he's using on the top deck here. It's the M Audio Oxygen Pro 61
MIDI controller.
Of course, you got the Nord Stage 3. You talked about the Nord Stage 3 in the last episode.
Yeah.
So if you missed that, you can listen to last week's episode and hear Zane explain kind of his rundown of his Nord Stage 3 setup. Then you got your MIDI pad over there.
Yes, I have a Akai APC Mini over here controlling my clips in Ableton that you're going to see me walk through. This Nord also is running over MIDI. And then on my laptop, I have Ableton running. I'm using multiple different plugins. So I'm using some Spectrasonic stuff, so like Keyscape, Omnisphere, some Contact libraries, Synthage, Amazing Pads, different things like that. Some Arturia plugins from their bundle, all really great stuff. A lot of keyboard emulations like Montage, Yamaha, some like Roland keyboard emulations that just were sampled really great and sound really good.
That's awesome. Which is another beautiful thing about software is that you can load in all these different sounds all in one, right? Like in the Nord, you're in a way trapped.
Yeah, limited to what's on it.
Yeah, exactly. Just like just having that motif, just having the Nord or whatever. Tons of sounds and great possibilities. But software, you can bring everything together. You know? So it's really cool. 2 weeks ago, we talked about MainStage and using MainStage software stuff with MIDI controllers. And this is just another way you can use software within the Ableton world. And give us, some people are worried about their computers and if things will be stable enough. Give us a rundown of what exact computer you're using and tell us, like, what's the RAM of this?
I'm using a HP Victus 15. I think it's the 2022 model. It's definitely nothing crazy. It's kind of like an entry-level gaming PC. If you're wanting to run like anything Ableton, anything MainStage, anything production at all live, because it's a bit more CPU intensive with some of the settings that you have to put on it to use live, I would recommend getting a laptop that has like at least about 500 gigs of SSD of storage, at least 16 gigabytes of RAMs, at least, ideally 32 or 64, but at least 16 gigabytes of RAM, a great graphics card, great CPU, and you should be good to go.
What's crazy, Zane, is when I first started using MainStage, like 8 or 9 years ago on a 2010 MacBook, and it had, guess how many gigabytes of RAM?
Like what, 8?
4.
Oof.
And then my buddy upgraded it, and it could upgrade to fit in 8.
Yeah.
So I had 4, but it basically was struggling, and I could hardly play anything. And then I upgraded to 8, and I could finally play it.
Yeah.
And it not buffer and all this stuff. And then, but yeah, like you're saying, at least 16 gigabytes of RAM. Nowadays, computers are so much more affordable, especially for the RAM size. And RAM is usually starting at 16 gigabytes nowadays or I guess I'm speaking from in the Mac world. But this is a great episode. Even if you don't go full Apple and you don't go like MacBook realm, you can get phenomenal setups using a PC computer, which is awesome, man. Of course, I'm a MacBook user, Apple user, but this PC is proof that it can still do the job very, very well. So let that be an encouragement to you guys listening, and hope this episode is very beneficial. And Zane, let's jump right into it, man.
Let's get into it. All right, so welcome to my crazy world. Welcome inside my brain. Essentially, the reason why I kind of use Ableton a lot when I'm playing live is because of the continuity. So this Nord Stage 3 is not mine. It belongs to the church. This M Audio is mine. And from time to time, I'll go different places, travel to play, and I just kind of don't know what they have, what board they have, or if I'll be able to like figure it out in time. Whereas with Ableton, I have a MIDI controller. I can set everything up when I'm at home, and I can take it anywhere, and it just works. I don't have to worry about like getting the right sounds. Don't have to worry about keyboard action, whatever. I just bring what I need, have it at home, have time to prep, whatever. So essentially, when I first started running Ableton, it was very, very basic. This was probably about 3 years ago. I didn't even have like a MIDI controller to just like faders. I was just adjust it with my hand, kind of just pull faders up and down as I needed it. I had just like a few VSTs up, like pianos, things like that. But after a while, I kind of realized I needed more sounds. I needed to be able to switch them quicker and also put less of a load on my CPU. So that's kind of how the way I set up this set came into being. Now, I can't take full credit for it. It was kind of a collaborative effort. My friend Zeph and I kind of figured it out, and then we kind of workshopped more how to make it the most efficient. But essentially what I'm doing is Ableton has a view called Session View, which is what I'm in right now. This other view is Arrangement View, which is kind of where you would like record just like in Logic, Pro Tools, whatever. But this Session View here allows you to do a few things. So the first thing is all of these right here are essentially clips. So you can have audio inside these clips, like people that, I don't know if you've seen those like live looping videos. People record to this, you can play it back. People like make beats in here. Or you can have the MIDI clips, just like an audio clip, just MIDI instead. Now, I have MIDI clips in mine, so no audio, MIDI clips. However, there's no like MIDI notes or anything like that in it. All that's in it is actually automations. So in each of these clips, and if I just pull up one here, you can see the envelope, and I have my kind of automation section. You can see this red dot indicates that there's an automation on it. And baked into this clip is essentially two automations. The first one is a patch changer or change selector. So in Ableton, there's an instrument rack, which is essentially like, think of it like a regular stage rack. So there's multiple devices in it. In this, you can mount a whole lot of devices. I only have 7 per channel. And what you do with this chain selector, which is this blue icon here, is that it allows you to change which device in your rack the MIDI signal is going to. So that's kind of how I change my sound. So like if I click this, if I open here, well, the automation's already on, but if I click off of it, if I press this first clip, you'll see this blue line here moved, and also this circle turned yellow. Let's do it again, off and then on. So that does two things. The first thing it does is that it tells this instrument rack to send MIDI signals only to this first device right here. So that's how I change my sounds. The second thing it does, it also does is what is called device on and off, or essentially turning that plugin on and off. And what that does is that it helps to save CPU. So like, as you can see, I have 7 clips each times 8 channels. That's like 56 different plugin instances I could have open. If I were to have all those open at the same time, my laptop would literally die. So to save CPU, I have the automations also tell each instrument rack to turn on and off. Now, in these instrument racks, I can essentially drag and drop any plugin I want to. So let's just use like a regular piano, let's say Keyscape. So I can just take Keyscape and drag and drop into this instrument rack. And it's going to take a second to load.
Also, tell them what computer are you using.
That was the preview. So I drag and drop Keyscape in here. And I can now, hold up, sorry, it's not armed. I can now play Keyscape. Play Keyscape like that. So if I'm playing Keyscape, and let's just say, let me load another sound in this second device area, so to speak. Let's say let's just load Keyscape again with a different sound on it. I put Keyscape in here, and let's just say I want an EP. So let's go over Rhodes LA Custom. So I'm playing I hit this first clip, and I'm playing Keyscape. If let's say we're going to the next song and I need Rhodes for that, all I do is I just hit the second clip, and I have a Rhodes playing, and it turns off the first instance of Keyscape. Anybody that has anything Spectrasonics knows it uses a lot of CPU, so that device automation kind of really helps out a lot, and it's very quick to kind of switch in between 2 patches. So that's kind of like a breakdown, and I just duplicated it all over so I can have as many sounds in these clips. I'll rename it too, so I can rename this one piano. And then I'll rename it in the instrument rack as well. Just so that everything kind of lines up. Not only can you do this, you can also add extra parameters to it. So inclusive of this sound, if I wanted to add, let's say, reverb and in a delay, I can drag this preset that I created that just has a Valhalla. Valhalla is like one of the best reverbs ever, in my opinion. It's just a Valhalla and an Echo Boy, Sound Toys Echo Boy delay. Probably not going to use a delay on the piano, so I'll cut that. But I can slide this on. If I open this instrument rack, you'll see it's kind of the same exact thing. I just have a dry reverb signal, delay signal running in parallel, not like a wet dry knob. And I have the volume of it mapped to a macro in Ableton, which is just like you just right click, map to macro, and I do it like that. So if I want to add reverb, I'm on the Rhodes. So if I want to add more reverb, I can just turn this up, less, and then I can add a delay. Not that I'd probably ever use a delay on a Rhodes, but yeah, that's kind of how I can do that. You can map macros to like EQs, compressors, and you can just use anything. You can use your hand to change it. If you have like a MIDI control, like a nano control or something, you can use those knobs to kind of control those MIDI mapped macros. So that's kind of how I set up my session. It's really good, really quick. It allows me to change. I also have my Akai right here. So instead of having to reach for my laptop every time, I can just have my Akai with me. I press here, and it's switching between all those clips for me. So if I'm playing a piano, and I need to switch to a Rhodes, I just go boop, and I have a Rhodes sound playing. So this is like the quickest way I've found to kind of swap between sounds, and I just duplicate that all over, have it as a template. So if I need to create a new kind of scene or session for a new song or new concert, whatever, I can just pull it up, load whatever sounds I need into it, and I'm good to go. All right, so this next session I have is a rundown of how I would set it up if I'm playing like a really planned out set where I need to switch many different sounds, especially like if I'm playing aux, even though this is kind of set up for like a hybrid main keys and aux keys. So in addition to these clips that you can fire individually in Ableton, on the master like channel or master bus, it also has clips that allows you to launch all the MIDI clips or audio clips that you have on one single line. So like, for example, if I want to turn everything off, I have a clip here named off that I can click and it turns all of these clips off. So I wouldn't have to go through and click all of them manually. I can just hit the clip, and I can do the same thing here in my Akai. Hit the clip and it turns everything off. On that clip also has some like tempo and time signature automations. So in this sign I'm about to play in this first song that I show you, there's a delay in it that's matched to the tempo. I think it's an eighth note ping pong delay. So I'm able to like change the tempo that I want to match the tempo of the song. Right now, none of these other ones really need the tempo, why I didn't like go through and do it for all of them. But for these first two right here is kind of where it was important to have that 115.44 BPM. This is a drone right here that I have. If I go to, let's say I'm going to G, G. I hit this, it starts my drone in G, and I'm playing my first song. Let's say I'm going. So something like that is how I would show you a few mistakes in there, but just a showcase, showing you how I would essentially just seamlessly switch between different sounds that I need, like it loaded patches on the bottom keyboard, loaded patches on the top keyboard. That sine wave is what had the tempo automation that I needed. And this drone here, as you can see, when I click down here, it doesn't launch a clip here because I actually don't have a clip. So it just keeps my drone in G going. I probably turn that down since I'm talking. It keeps that drone in G going while I click this next clip, so it doesn't like fire an empty clip or another clip. If I'm going down to, let's say, that was kind of like a more upbeat song. If I'm starting let me turn this back up. If I'm starting a more like low key song, I'm right here, and I have a felt grand loaded, so I'm going. At the next part of the song, and I go. And I have volume control right here, so this pad is probably a bit too loud. Like that. And then I'm at the breakdown of the song, so I'm like, we're like the song is finishing. I hit here, and I have essentially a split here. So I have this set of pads called Amazing Pads, which I did a video on my page that you can go check out how I kind of set this up. So I open this, and I can layer up to 5 pads at once. So let me just pull up to say just 2 for right now. I'm in D. So throughout the breakdown of the song, I just went like. So right there, as you can see, there's a lot of stuff that I can do in this instrument rack. Like I can't. It's not only just the EQ automations or like the patch changing. I can also split notes. I can select like, okay, in this instrument rack, I only want notes C0 through C. So I think it's G2 is what I have mapped to this glidey here. Oh, hold on, it's off. It's kind of gliding like string sound. If I go over to this, you see it's really just a drag and drop. Like I can choose how many notes I want it to trigger. Currently have it at G2 right here. So if I go up, it triggers this sound over here. And in this channel, I have this set to start at G sharp 2 or A flat 2. I can't believe I just said G sharp. A flat 2. So I can layer 2 sounds at once or split my keyboard into 2. And another kind of addition to this set that I have is some one shots in a drum rack. So let's say we're doing that same breakdown and I'm going. I can just pull up some chimes just like that, just beautiful, right on top of it. And I have, as you can see, I have some other stuff in there as well. On my drones, I'm also using amazing pads, the same VSC that I have for the instruments, for the pads. So this has some drones inside it that to be able to do this automation is a bit more technical, requires some Ableton knowledge. So you essentially have to map these to what's called a host automation, which is essentially like mapping them to parameters within an instrument rack, and then you can then map your macros to that host automation. If you want to see it in real time, when I hit, or let me open this plugin again so you can see what's happening in both places. When I open this, if I resize contact, when I hit the drone in D, which is right here, it changes this down here to D, and this is mapped to that macro. So this clip is mapped to this macro down here. So if I go again, look at this, and look at this. I go off, it turns the plugin off, I hit D, it moves the key to D, and it moves this to the MIDI CC value of 60, which corresponds to D within this plugin. And it does the same thing for if I move to G. And in these macros here, I'm able to control what drone sounds I want. So I can get more of this, I can get a choir pad, I can get this angel pad, and they're all mapped to contact, so that if I don't want to use my mouse, I can use a nano control, I can use my Akai right here, I can use the knobs on my M Audio. I just have so many different ways to kind of customize this set and use it live. So everything is just quick. Everything is at my fingers. I have everything that I need really quickly, a lot of different parameters, sounds right at my finger. All right, so this other session that I'm about to show you is kind of basically it's my every Sunday session that I use. It's not set up to like clips, as you can see on the master channel. There's nothing there, just because this one is more of a, less planned out. I don't need as many sounds. Maybe I need like 1 or 2 pianos, like the same pad going in the background. So this one I kind of just fire individually, and I have it set up in different banks. So you see there's a bank for pianos, E-pianos, pads, strings, aux sounds, drones, and then like the one shots like I was telling you before. So if I kind of just give you a run through of like what sounds I'm using, right here I have this kind of like old school gospel layer, which is firstly it's a montage emulation is what's the plugin called, Synthage. It's a montage emulation, and it kind of emulates the sound of that. Let me mute this other one right here. of that full concert, that classic Yamaha montage motif, full concert grand. And this other one right here is an emulation of the classic MKS modules E-Piano 2. So if I layer it, it gives you a really like old school gospel like a really old school gospel sound. If I'm, let me start firing from here instead of there to kind of show it. If I want, let's say, a soft piano sound, like you see, I have C7 softest here, which is a Keyscape C7 emulation. I want to have this pad here going. Not with this. Let's turn this off. I want to have like a really soft sound. Let's say I'm playing behind someone. And I'm in D, so I could launch a drone in the I could launch a drone in the key of D. Let's turn down. So I can have something like that going during a soft song. If I'm let's say I'm switching keys to F, I'm going to F, I would start the song with this F drone, and then let's say I want a upright piano sound with some pads and a string sound, and I'm going, let's say, some bells on the top, which is right here. So I'm going a bit too loud, but or if I want, let's say, a felt, probably fits that a little bit better. Turn down the string some. That's kind of how I have it set up, especially if I'm playing main keys. As you can see, there's not much aux things going on here. There's just this warm pad. Let me turn the strings off. Just this warm pad going in the background, which is it's an emulation of the, I think it's called Analog on the actual ModiX montage. Then there's this another pad from Omnisphere called Slow Motion. This polytrance pad is like a really fizzy, like we're playing like a really big part of a song. Let me go to a bigger, nicer sounding piano. So I'm doing something like that, going to a bigger song. Yeah, just many ways that I can use to just pull whatever sound I need, like in the moment, just grab for it and go. As you can see, I have the same kind of EQ macros going to, maybe I need to EQ something live. Don't really pull for it much. But yeah, just using many tools in worship to kind of express my creativity in a way that's kind of personal to like the sound that God has placed in my heart. I think is critical for me, critical for anyone who is a keys player. Like, you don't have to just show up and like play a note and play this specific piano sound because whoever church uses that sound. Like, be creative, use your ear. God put this like music on your heart for a reason. Invest in tools, things like this, because you really just love like how your mind can just get going in that creative moments. Like I'll very rarely, but sometimes I like load a sound live just because I already have it set up where I can turn it on and off as needs to. as I need to. So things like that, just having these tools be able to bend and flex to the needs that I have for it is critical for whatever setup I have. So if I, as great as the technology could be, if it's not helping me do things quicker, if it's not helping me do things faster, if it's not helping me be more creative, which is the most important, I guess, then I'm not going to use it, no matter like who or what it does. It just has to be quick, has to be fast, and has to allow me to express myself in a way that fits the moment, fits the worship song, and fits the culture of your church.
Well, guys, thanks again for listening to the Worship Keys podcast today. Glad you're here on this episode. If you've enjoyed this, feel free to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you're listening to podcasts as well. Feel free to comment below, say, hey, Zane's been very gracious enough to allow me into his church space here in Atlanta, Georgia. So thank you to Croc Center Atlanta for allowing us to be here. Zane's done an incredible job just explaining everything in Ableton. Hope it's been beneficial. Again, would love to hear from you. Email, Instagram, comments, whatever it may be. Carson@theworshipkeys.com. If you want to know more about Zane, you need to go back to last week's episode. He talked about his brand new single called The Perfect Man. Now, it's Zain Stephen, by the way. You can follow him on Instagram. Zane, do you have any last words that you'd like to leave?
Yeah, just kind of like words of encouragement. This like all may seem like, especially if you're just starting, it may seem like a little bit intimidating at first, but I would say just trust yourself, just jump in. Because I tell you, like, once you jump in, you'll never want to jump back out. Since I've been using like keys, Ableton, stuff like that, it's just been like constantly just diving deeper, wanting to know more. So once you get into it, like it's going to be like something great that you realize that you've stumbled upon. Just feel free to just be creative. Feel free to reach out to me. My DMs are always open, always answer.
I was about to wrap up the episode, but you kind of prompted me to maybe ask you a few more things.
Sure.
So in the Ableton world, along the lines of people being intimidated, they're like, oh man, that probably took you 10 years to learn or whatever. Kind of break down the barrier. Tell me, what age were you when you first got introduced to Ableton, and how fast did it take for you to like just get up and running?
So I first got Ableton in 2021. Only been 3 years.
And you're already proficient.
Yeah, mostly. I had like probably one plugin, like literally one. I had Contact, and then soon realized that Contact is an actual VST. It's just a player. So I had Contact at first, and then I got this S90ES. That was the first plugin that I had. Sweet. Some of my friends that also use Ableton, we kind of just like kept each other going, like encouraging each other. Like we'd find new things, send videos out to each other. I guess about 2022. That's when I started getting a lot more plugins, a lot more sounds, getting a lot more creative, trying to figure out ways to use Ableton live. I figured this out about, I don't think more than maybe 8 or 9 months ago.
Wow.
is when I kind of figured out how to run the session this way and set it up this way. So super cool. It's been a really short timeline of just like being really deep dive, like just watching YouTube videos on Ableton every day, like learning to use a Nord, MIDI controller, things like that. Like I said, like once you dive into this world, you'll quickly get like swallowed up in it and never want to leave.
That's awesome, man. Zane's only been going at it, y'all, 2 or 3 years in the Ableton world, and he's already just soaring above the mountains, man. Incredible. Let that be an inspiration to you guys listening and watching, that y'all can learn Mainstage, y'all can learn Ableton, y'all can learn software, you can learn hardware with the Nord Stage. All it takes is time and effort, some research, just some, maybe some failed attempts. Maybe things don't go right.
Failed attempts.
I mean, rehearsal time is a great time to experiment, especially your own practice time at home, of course. Set up how you want it to be. Chris Brown had in his episode a while back, he talked about wherever you want to be in life. If you want to be a touring musician, set up your home place as if you're on stage, right? If you're playing at church and you want to have a better setup, take it home, set it up, and spend, an 8-hour day with your gear, just getting to know all of it, all the ins and out of it. And I love what you said, man, about how these are just tools that help me with my creativity, right? Yep. And my expression of worship. So if these tools aren't helping you guys fully express yourself in worship as much as you'd want it to, then just get to know your gear better. Maybe think about different gear. Maybe think about different software, different keyboard. Grab a sound that inspires you. Learn music that inspires you, that can better inspire you to be a better musician, and ultimately just help your heart posture in worship. So, Zane, thank you again for being on the podcast.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And we'll see you guys next week.